Hello, and welcome to episode 91 of Design Curious Podcast. I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. Today on the podcast, I'm recounting some inspiration that I had from recent travels. Travel is a very important part, I think, of a designer's inspiration process and just really helps to develop them in their observation skills and think outside the box when it comes to their projects. So I'm going to get all into travel later. And if you're interested in becoming an interior designer, then you're going to want to get into My Design Mentor, which is my online mentoring platform. I can work with you in there on anything. We can customize the program to be what it is that you need, but I do have 12 modules that you can work through that give you the basics of the career, things you can expect from the career, how to work with trades, working on your mindset, if you want to do a business, if you want to work for someone. So we talk about all those things in the modules, but then I am available to you to help with your questions about whatever it is you're working on. So I have some mentees in there who are going through school and they need feedback on projects that they're working on, maybe a final project. Other people, I'm reviewing their resume to help them get a job. And we look at maybe some more courses or things that they can do to help improve their resume, make them more hireable. Or if you're just starting out in your business, of course, I have the business starter kit, but we can work together on developing your business name or whatever it is that you want to get off the ground and get your career started. We can work on that in My Design Mentor. So if you're interested in that, links in the show notes and get signed up today. All right, let's talk about travel. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. So yes, I love to travel. It's not something that I get to do like going abroad very often just because it can get expensive to have this travel bug. But as you know, I lived in the south of France for a year during college and loved it. And while I was there, of course, I traveled all around Europe and really just reveled in the accessibility that I had taken the trains everywhere. And as a student, there were so many discounts. So it was really a great time to travel then. And of course, I haven't been able to do as much with kids and everything, but I just loved this trip to Australia that I had a few weeks ago. And it was just the best time. First of all, I was going with another group of designers. I went a little early with a couple of the ladies and we kind of did our own thing for a few days. We took some tours, walked through the beaches, went snorkeling, ate at every fabulous restaurant we could find, and just really enjoyed the whole experience to the fullest. But one of the best things that I thought about Sydney, and that surprised me most, was the Sydney Opera House. I mean, obviously it is so iconic, and if you go to Sydney, you're going to see it from many aspects of the city, and is on definitely everyone's bucket list to go and see it. I didn't even think about before I went, though, what it would actually look like in person. What was the materials that it was made of? And even think about all the different buildings that it comprised of. I had not really paid attention to it. It was just like a figure you see in the background of a lot of movies or photographs and things like that. So one of the insights that I learned from traveling to see the Sydney Opera House was that it was made up of tiny little tiles that were essentially very simplistic in nature. They were square tiles, maybe, I think they were about 6 by 6. And there was white ones that were shiny and kind of had a modulated texture on the surface. And then there were other ones that were more concrete-like looking, and they were a creamy color, and they had a matte texture to it. So the whole building was covered with these tiles and interchanged and set on diagonals and in lines that would branch out from the base of the building to over the top of the sails, as it were. And up close, it was such a simplified pattern, a simple texture, simple pattern, just these two colors, simple shapes. But the effect was so stunning from a distance and even up close, just to see it all, that it really made me realize that there's just beauty in simplicity. You don't have to have the most lavish, extravagant, outstanding material to make something beautiful. These are just simple concrete tiles that just had a beauty when they were assembled in a specific designed way. So that was definitely something that I could apply to my projects in embracing sometimes simplicity. Maybe they're simple fabrics, but when you put them together or create a pattern out of them, you can create something unique and beautiful with them. So I'm definitely treasuring that insight and going to think about it a lot more as I approach my projects and try to look for more beauty in simplicity. Another insight that I had from traveling and seeing the Opera House was that the Opera House, you traditionally see it from a certain angle where you can see all of the buildings angling together and they look kind of like sails on a boat or something like that. But as I was walking around the Opera House and seeing it from different angles, there's definitely sides of it that aren't typically photographed that I really appreciated and took photos of myself. And no matter what angle I was viewing the Opera House from, it looked equally magnificent as it did from the traditional angle that you typically see it. And it helped me to understand that when I approach my projects, I also need to be considering all the angles that someone will be viewing a space from, all the entry points into a room, and perhaps sitting in a sofa at a certain side versus the other side. What are you going to be seeing exactly? And is everything equally as beautiful from one angle as the other? So really to just consider the whole 360 view of every space is going to be a game changer, I think, for some of the designs and just really making it thorough and really making it enjoyable for clients. And then another thing that I thought about as I was touring the Opera House was the lighting of this facility. When you're walking underneath those majestic sails, you can see a concrete ribbing that is, well, first concrete beams as well as steel beams, steel and glass. And of course, these are very simplified construction materials that created a beautiful effect. But at night, they would be completely lost, and even during the day, if they weren't correctly lit. And so I really noticed it at night that the lighting of these structures from underneath, from the sides, from the front and back, all had an effect on how you perceive the space and the beauty. And so it is really important to think about proper lighting for every project. You spent so much time putting details into these spaces that it could completely get lost when there's insufficient lighting. And you don't want to have it be a waste of resources just because the lighting is poor. So my other takeaway was to always consider the lighting as integral to the design and really to help elevate the space and really show off all of the hard work that you're putting into it as a designer. It's things that the client might not even ask for or realize they need to ask for, and this is what you should bring forward as a designer to your clients. Really get a lighting designer on hand, outsource it to an expert, and consult with them on how the lighting should be in the home, because it really shouldn't be left to the electrician. While they might be good at their job, they are not considering all the details that you are when it comes to how you're lighting the space and why you're lighting the space and for whom you're lighting the space. So really getting a lighting expert on board with your project is going to make them stand out. Now, I did get to visit the Opera House in the evening, and I actually took in a show while I was there. We were kind of at the mercy of whatever was scheduled to be playing. So we caught a Zeppelin tribute band with an orchestra in the Opera House. It was actually wonderful. They did a great job. It was very enjoyable. But it was very fun to go into the opera house to see a show and be there as people are walking in and experiencing the lobby space. I just was taking pictures as we went along and just seeing the architecture of it all. Even the bathrooms were inspiring. They had this amazing wave-like effect with the doors that would go in and out from one stall to the next, which you can only notice if all the doors are shut at the same time. So it was a kind of fun to see it all as it was taking place during a show and being surrounded by Australians and just having a great time. So I was very privileged to be able to see a show at the Opera House. Also, while we were there one evening, we had dinner at their restaurant, which is basically just has glass windows floor to ceiling that you can look out and view the rest of the terrace and patio areas that are surrounding the Opera House. In the evening, we could see fireworks going off across in the distance. We could see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's just a beautiful restaurant with excellent food. So that was a treat also to see just the interior design of the restaurant as well. And as we were leaving, as my friends always do in this group, they asked me to sing them a song a cappella whenever we travel because they know that I sing with my husband. We have an acoustic duo. And so they're always asking me to sing them a couple songs. So as we were leaving the Opera House, we were in this under part where it had really great acoustics. Nobody was there because the show that was going on hadn't let out currently. It was just about to, though. And so I sang them a song, and it was really fun to be able to say that I, quote unquote, sang at the Sydney Opera House. But the acoustics were amazing. It was just a great experience. But it was also great to just see all of those aspects of the building at night with the lighting. One other thing I got to do while on this trip was to visit 2 homes in the Sydney area and see the architecture. One of them was designed by a designer in our group who lives in Sydney area, and it was just extravagant, so well done. She did a great job. It is great to see her work in person, and this house was just amazing, had a view of the harbor. And then the other house I visited also had a view, of course. A lot of houses around there do, and it was beautiful. And it was more of a Federalist type colonial home. Definitely kept a lot of its historical features. Each room had a fireplace. It was a lot of fun to see. So even if I'm not designing usually in the tradition of the home that I'm touring, it is really inspiring to see all these details and be exposed to them and just see what historical homes look like in that area as well. So these are just a couple of the things that are a takeaway from my travel to Sydney, Australia. It wasn't just the Opera House that inspired me. As we walked through other neighborhoods, there were certain parts of it that had reminded me of Charleston, South Carolina, certain ironwork and everything. And there's inspiration in tile patterns on the floors. Pretty much anywhere you take a designer, you'll find us taking photos of his structure or the floor or the lights or something that people don't normally take photos of when they're on vacation. So that's, I think, why it would be fun to travel with a group of designers if you've never done it before, because they see things that typically people don't see. All this to say that travel, I think, is really an important part of a designer's life, that I get so inspired by traveling to different places, seeing how other people construct homes. I love doing home tours and seeing different construction details that maybe I've not considered before or seen in person. And it's just a great way to get inspired and bring it back to my projects and really start to make a difference for my clients. So, bottom line, go travel and get inspired, and then use all of your inspiration to inform your projects. So I try to travel as much as I can. Actually, one of the reasons why I had signed up for my mastermind group that I'm a part of is because there was travel involved. And I really wanted to go and see the world with all these other designers and get inspired. And so that was what I was looking for. So that's why I signed up for this group. And we are continuing to really make plans for traveling around different areas of the globe. It's just a fun thing that I really enjoy, and maybe you do too. So tell me where you have traveled and what places are really inspiring to you, and maybe I can add that to my list of places to visit. So that's it for this week. Next week, I will have another great episode for you, and until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.